last grammar class we talked about the pronouns, right? And we have already seen that pronouns are coming in various different ayahs. Every ayah you have so many different pronouns, and that's the importance of pronouns. So if you know it, then you can easily translate. So here is your pronoun chart. So we discussed the concept of third person, second person, and first person, and we discussed that there are two types of pronouns. If you want to categorize as regular pronouns, the one that you use for representing a subject. In English, for example, you have he is a good boy, he's a good student, right? So this is he is a pronoun, and it's a regular pronoun in a sense that it denotes the subject. When you want to talk about a pronoun in a sense of an object, you say him. I met he. You don't say I met he. You say I met him. Right? And similarly, you say I am coming. Right? And if you're saying is in an objective form, so you say, will you come and pick me up? So you see the different thing? You have I, you have me, and you have my. You have he, you have his, and you have him. Right? But in Arabic you just have two forms. So the regular one is this one. So we talked about huwa, huwa, huma, and hum, hiya, huma, hunna, anta, antuma, antum, and then anti, antuma, antunna, and ana, and nahnu. So this is something that I encourage you to try to keep looking at it daily or weekly, and when you see it in Quran, then you practice it anyways, but it's something to get used to soon. So we have male gender and female gender. So on this side, so these are the ones that are used for two things. If the pronoun is coming as an object, so I'm talking about this column now, it's called possessive pronouns. Why is it called possessive pronouns? Because these are also used when you're talking about possession, right? So you say I book. You don't say I book. You say I phone, right? But when you have to say that you own the book, you say what? My iPhone or my iBook or my book, right? You don't worry about that I anymore, right? Or if you have to say about third person, you say his book, her book. You don't say he book, she book, right? So for that, all we use this. So who is for possession or for as an object, right? So for example, if you have to say his Rabb, when we are talking about the verse about Ibrahim alayhi salam, we said وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ. We don't say Rabbu huwa. Rabbuhu, his Rabb. Okay? And similarly, if you have to talk about right, think of an example. So in terms of as an object, okay, we'll come to. Right, for example, ja'alnakum. Right here. Right, so we just learned in this today's class. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا, we made. Okay, now you have to say you all. What would you say? جَعَلْنَا أَنْتُمْ جَعَلْنَا kum. Because we are an object, right? The action is of making. So Allah made us as an ummah wasata. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. Understood? So that's why it's kum. Why is it not antum? It's because you all in that statement is an object. We made you as a ummah who's a balanced ummah. So similarly, now you can start observing in Quran that whenever the pronoun is coming as an object of a verb or is coming as an owning something, you use the pronouns from this column. Okay. So we have talked about this and hopefully it's clear. Are there any questions? Okay, so I wanted to review a few quick things and inshallah then we'll get into an important subject of verbs from next time. So here is masculine and feminine. There are many signs, there are many ways to make a masculine noun into a feminine noun. We'll learn one technique which is common and it's easy. So we know it, right? So for example, in English, one of the techniques is that you add ESS, for example. So you have actor, actress, right? So that's one of the techniques in English, right? So one of the common technique in Arabic language is that you add this round ta. This round ta. So this ta is for female. So there are other techniques as well. But remember, we're learning one technique at a time and most important one and then the less important one. So what's the importance of this technique? Right? For our purpose, remember our purpose is not to speak Arabic, it's to understand Arabic when we listen to it and when we read it. So if we already know a verb and a different verb comes to us, and if we know this technique, what we will do, for example, if you know the word, if you're reading the word saliha, or if you read it completely, then it's salihatun, right? So if you know that, oh, this ta is usually for female, so I'm going to get rid of it, and I will come, and what's remaining is salih. And I already know what salih means, because I know I've done the word amal salih, I've done amal salihat, right? So I know I can get rid of ta, and I know what the word is coming from. Similarly, I know the word mu'min, and if mu'mina comes, I can just take it out, and it's mu'min. I know what mu'min means, so it's not a new word for me. So this is the help that it gives you in one sense. Okay, and then they have given you some exceptions, so you can read that, but I'm not going into that for now. Okay, so another thing I wanted, so they have given you many examples, right? Sagir and sagirah, kabir, kabirah, and today we did the word kabirah. Remember? لَكَبِيرَةً إِلَّا عَلَى الَّذِينَ هَدَى اللَّهُ, right? So about the changing of the Qibla, and also in the very beginning of Al-Baqarah, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ. Okay, so on and so forth. Okay, so now this is another thing. So it's talking about singular and plural, right? So again, there are other ways of making singular and plural as well. We're learning one technique. For example, in English, a common technique is to add S, right? So you have boy, you add an S, it becomes plural, right? There are other ways too, some exceptions as well, but we're learning one technique. So, Muslim, you want to make it plural, you're going to add waw noon. So I'm talking about male gender right now. Waw noon. Okay. You can also make it plural in a different way, which is by adding yan. So Muslim, and you change it to Muslimin. Muslimin. Okay, and same thing here. Now, what is this talking about? Marfu, mansub, majroor. So these are Arabic terminologies. You don't have to start worrying about memorizing them for now. Or if you can, that's a good goal that you want to have, but at least for our understanding. So remember, you can call this, for example, subjective, and you can call mansub as objective, because when the form, so we have already talked about this thing, right? A noun can be a doer of an action, or it can be an object of an action. So if it's the doer of an action, then the form that is used is called marfu. So if you remember that one day we were talking about a hint, and it was the words, and it's also on the YouTube as a grammar video, a clip, was وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ, and later on we saw the word was إِبْرَاهِيمُ, right? We saw these two distinctions, and we said that in the first word is Ibrahima because Ibrahim as-salam is the object of the action. The action there was testing. So when Ibrahim was tested, Quran says Ibrahima. And later on, when Ibrahim Islam is making dua, so he is doing the action. Right? He is making dua. So it says Ibrahimu. Why is it? Qala Ibrahimu Rabbi ij'al hadha balad. Make this city a city of peace and so on and so forth. So this is this concept about marfu, mansub and majroor. So don't worry too much about it. We'll deal with it when the time comes. So for now you can ignore it. But I just mentioned it so that kind of sits somewhere in the background. So when it comes you can inshallah recall. Majroor is a state that comes for two reasons. One is for possession. Remember when we were talking about the verses, we talked about Baitullahi, right? When you have Allah, He, that kasra that comes at the end of the noun, it indicates that the noun owns whatever is before it. So Baitullahi, the house of Allah, Rasulullahi, the messenger of Allah. So this state is called majroor. So in your notes you can call it, for example, possessive state. So you have one is Allahu, the other form is Allah ha, the mansub form is Allah ha, and the majroor form is Allah he. Anyways, I don't want to make it complicated. This is a kind of advanced thing which we will inshallah do later. For now, just remember that waw noon makes it plural. But when you're talking about the feminine case, then you have alif and then a ta, like a regular ta, not a sound, not a round ta, but a regular ta. So muslimatin, sorry, muslimatun, muslimat, muslimatin, and muslimatin. So this makes it a plural. So whenever you see something, don't get confused. Okay, fine, I know what Muslim is, and this is just a plural of it. And this chart, which denotes the dual form. Remember, in Arabic you have singular, dual, used for two people, and you have more than two is plural. So this is something that we have seen, for example, whenever it's talking about two people, such as in the ayat of the magic malakain. So it's not waw noon anymore, it's yan. So this is denoting the two. So this is not too frequent in Quran, but you remember that if you have to make a singular Muslim into a dual, you add a alif noon, muslimat, right? And for a female it becomes ta, alif and noon, muslimatan. Yeah, it's not like I was thinking about it. Okay. Right? Okay, so it's ta, alif and noon, and here it's ya noon. Okay, so muslimain and female is muslima dain. Okay, so basically the difference is here and here, right? Muslimain versus muslimi. Okay, so anyways, so instead of being precise about it, the point is when you see these additions, you know what these are for, right? So there's two things. One is when you see it, you recognize it, and the other step is to think it in your head that I want to talk about two-person. How am I going to generate a noun that fits it, right? So what we are doing is relatively easier because you'll see it written properly in Quran. You just have to understand it. The other step is harder, where you have to think that I want to talk about dual. How can I come up with an appropriate word? Okay, so that's examples about that. Then we are coming on this topic of, these are very frequently used words for questioning. So this is very frequently you see it in Quran. So they are all compiled together for you. This is on page number 9 of this PDF. So you have man, which is who, and then you see ma or mada coming for what, and you see ay coming for which. Right? Ayyul fariqain, which of the two parties, right? And this is for the feminine. And kaifa is how, right? In Al-Baqarah we saw كَيْفَ تَكْفُرُونَ بِاللَّهِ, right? How can you disbelieve in Allah? Mata is when, and aina is where, limaza is why, kam is how many, and hal or a comes for question. Okay? So this is a reference chart that you can have to combine everything together. You see this as we go along in the Quran. We see this repeatedly. So I don't necessarily want you to sit down and memorize this chart, but it's a good reference to have everything together, that okay, I see these words as I go.
What is the name of the file?
So this is Brief Journey Through Arabic Grammar APP for Appendix B1. Okay. Yeah. So Brief Journey Through Arabic Grammar _app and then -B1. So you see there are not many files. So if you go on the forum and you click on the grammar, you will see this as well. And also on the YouTube, you should see a link to it in the comments or the description of the video.
We have done it through Arabic grammar.
Appendix B1.
Appendix B1.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later. Okay, so then you see these things for pointing out to things. So these are ism ishara, so you point out to something. So haza is for this and dhalika is for that. And we have also seen that, so this is for the near objects, right? If something is near, you say haza. Something is far, you say dhalika. Also, you use dhalika for respect. Even if something near you for respect, you say dhalika. And that's one of the reasons for dhalikal kitab, that book, meaning to give respect to the book. Dhalikal kitabu la rayba fi. And then you have hadani for dual and dhalika for dual, not very common. Haulai and ulaika are quite common. So this is something that you see as we go along. Hazihi is for female, and hazi is for female near thing, and tilka is for female far thing, and haulai and ulaika remains the same for the feminine gender as well. And then you have relative pronoun that we continuously see is alladhi, right? So the one who, right? Alladhina, for example, wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat. So except the ones who do this thing. So this is the type of pronoun that connects two sentences. Something that was mentioned in an earlier sentence and something that is mentioned in a later sentence. So allazina amanu. So these are the people who are exception from being the losers. And we see many examples about it. So, for example, today we saw allati for qibla. We did not make the qibla that which you were upon. Okay. So I know I'm going very fast, but this is just as a reference for you to come back to when you see them being used in Quran. And another set that I would like you to be aware of is prepositions. And these are also called harf jar. So two things I would like to talk about it. Number one is whenever they come before a noun, they make the noun have a kasra, or in other words, they make the noun in a state which is called genitive state. So remember when we were seeing these three states, marfu, mansub, majrur up top, and so I talked about that you use the kasra state or the genitive state, or if you want to call it the possessive state, to show ownership. For example, to say the house of Allah, you say Baytullah He. So that's the possessive state of the noun, or the genitive state of the noun. So that kasra that you put, Baytullahi. Similarly, whenever any of these guys, any of these letters come before a noun, you also do the same thing. So for example, Bismillah, right? So in the name of Allah, right? Okay. Here's the so a'udhu billahi. Why is it billahi, not billahu? Because of that ba. Right? So ba is a preposition. It's a harf jar, and ba is a harf with. Right? So this list has all the preposition. So anything in that list, you put a kasra on the noun that follows it. So because of this ba, a'udhu billahi. Similarly, you say minash.
Okay, if it's not a noun, then is there like hatta la takunu, it's like hatta and there's no noun.
I was talking about minash shaitan, right? So min is a harf jar, so that's why you have minash shaitani and not minash shaitana. So this is a list of preposition, but remember that preposition can have different meanings, different translation, depending on the context and depending on the noun, because these are a little bit flexible. So in English, for example, you have in, and you have to, and you have at. These are all prepositions. So you have look in, look at, look upon, look down. So depending on what the preposition comes, the meaning changes. Sometimes these preposition also helps with the different understanding of the meaning. And we will discuss that when we come across them in the Quran. For example, we have discussed preposition in the context of istawa. The word istawa, when it comes with different preposition, it means different things. We've discussed that. Another time we discussed that was the word ragiba, right? So when we were talking about وَمَن يَرْغَبْ عَن مِلَّةِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. So because of the preposition right? Now it's saying about, correct? But when it comes to yarghab an, it means to turn away, to reject, right? To not like something. But if it's without an, ragiba means to desire something. So anyways, these things are something that we discuss when we study the verses. Here is just like a general list so that you know that, okay, these are the prepositions that I see in Quran, and this is what they do on the noun that follows them. And the real details come when we actually see them in the Quran. But these are some charts that are good references, so I wanted to cover them. But going forward, our discussion on grammar would be more comprehensive, because we'll pick up one topic and discuss that. So these are just a few charts that I just quickly wanted to pass by, because it's not much to talk about. We don't want to practice grammar for the sake of grammar. We want to see it when we see it with the verses. So with that, inshallah, we'll end. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.